Christ in the center. Welcome to forever. This is our perfect synchrony, like leather and feathers. No matter the weather, we can storm the umbrellas. Take a stroll in my heart. Let's take this further when I'm beside you, baby. See my stakes get better. Let me bet it all. Destiny vendettas. Rosy the emotional description of this love. I am yours, you are mine. The only thing that matters now. We are the Echimus.
Discussing submission and gender roles and headship is touchy in our generation, because it's been misrepresented, misunderstood, and many people use the word of God as a reason, a justifiable reason to mistreat their friends or their people within the context of marriage. Let's try and demystify that today as best as we can. Now, I'm going to lean heavily on submission, not because I'm talking to the ladies, although it will sound like that, but because it is important for both ladies and their gentlemen to understand what submission is and what it is not, and then maybe both of you can treat each other better within the marriage. And by so doing, we will inevitably discuss what that looks like for men. Okay? Are we together? I like feedback, guys. So please feel free to give me feedback. All right. So this portion of scripture starts first with submit one to another. Okay? Submission, it's key for us to know that submission starts first with submitting to Christ. Both two Christians within a marriage submitting themselves to the authority of Christ, and then two Christians submitting to one another. Okay. Most times when the scripture is read or even used, there is a lot of emphasis put on wives submit to your husbands. But actually, the scripture says we submit one to another. And after we have done that, then wives submit to your husbands. And husbands love your wives. I personally believe that wives were told to submit, consciously submit, because we are wired to go, okay? We do things where somebody asked earlier, why is it that the guys who came alone and left their people behind, most of them were girls, they came alone and they did things quickly? Because it's easier to do things when you are by yourself, especially for us ladies. But the Bible is cautioning us consciously submit. Okay? Because it is hard for us. And I think the Bible also consciously cautioned men to love, because for them, love is, wow, it's A or B. Huh? They are not there seated thinking, wow, love, how do I love? Banange, let me love more. I want to be loved. Banange, love. That's for us, not for them. For them, after they have conquered you, as long as they are loving enough to get what they need, they are good to go. Okay? So the Lord had to consciously remind them, keep loving, love, and then love some more. Okay? Now, I would like to first tell us what submission is not before we get into what submission is. Okay? Submission is not being a doormat. It doesn't mean that when you get married, you put your brain, you leave your brain at the altar. You've heard that expression? Some men expect that their wives, because they have been married, no longer have thoughts. Interestingly, between the two of us now, when I say a lot of personal secrets. It takes me a lot of self-control not to say our secrets. So in case I say some things that are very personal, please don't share on Twitter. And don't overtell your friends, okay? It's just for you guys here. And for us, I think I was the one who, in my mind, I thought I was so brilliant. I was God's gift to him. And I always wanted to, I knew what we were doing, where we were going. I was the one who was always like, excuse you, I came into this marriage, I know I also have, I was the one, just know. And I had to get to a point where I realized, okay, this man, at the time that we got married, was way beyond 30. and he had a good head on his shoulders. He had survived that long, and he was quite successful at what he was doing. So he must have known a little something about life. I couldn't know everything, okay? And sometimes men marry ladies, and then either the lady assumes that she no longer has to think, or the man assumes that he's now there to think for her. And that's not what submission is, okay? You're two individuals, two fully functioning individuals. In fact, what you have loved about each other is the way you function, okay? So you're bringing that into the marriage. Your gifts, your strengths, all that is coming into the marriage. The question is, how do you bring it so that it builds the marriage rather than tearing it down, okay? It doesn't mean that, submission doesn't mean that you as a wife no longer has opinions. The same way, it doesn't mean if we say we should submit one to another, Rev J is not going to say, anyway, now I'm submitting to you, honey, so I no longer have opinions. That's not fair. You're fully grown human beings. Of course, you're going to have something to say about the different things that will be brought up, that will come up in your marriage. So submission and respect does not negate teaching. Just because I am submitting to Rev J, if Rev J is not, maybe he's not taking care of his body well, or when he's in public, he doesn't present well, he's not sensitive about the way he communicates, or if he's not very knowledgeable in affairs of etiquette, am I going to sit back and say, I'm submitting to this man, let him be, in fact, I'll follow his lead, and yet you know there is a better way to do things. It doesn't mean that just because you've gotten married and you're being submissive and respectful, therefore whatever the man does, it is right. Oh, mami chakoba. Have you heard that saying? Oh, mami chakoba. Nange chenkuwati? Chenkoba. No. If you see a better way, if there is a way that you can help your friend, and it goes vice versa, you should be willing to do it for the betterment of the unit. When he steps out and he sounds good and he looks good, it is good for the two of us. When I step out and I sound good and I look good, it is good for the two of us. Even as we are individuals functioning in a brilliant, as individuals we are shining, that shine, it should be stronger when we are together. We should be polishing one another. Iron sharpens iron. We get together so that we screw off those rough edges around each other until we shine and glow together as a unit. All right. And when your friend is teaching you, now this is a question for you guys, not just the men, but also the ladies. If your husband notices something about you, but darling, maybe you could change this thing. Are you humble enough to take it? If your wife tells you, but love, maybe you could do this a little better, are you courageous enough to listen to her and edit it accordingly? Have you gotten to a point where each of you realizes, okay, this man loves me, this lady loves me so much, her intention couldn't be to hurt me. If she says something, it's probably for my good. If he says something, it's probably to make the two of us better. We are supposed to grow together. Have you gotten to that point where you trust your friends so much that even when they give you a bitter pill, you can take it because it is from them, and you know it's going to shape you better. It's going to make you grow. I used to fight with my husband a lot about dressing. My husband never used to dress like this. When she was telling her story about that rainbow shirt, we laughed because we had a date where my husband came and he was wearing all shades of blue on every item on his body. Every single shade. And let me tell you, the shirt had dots, the tie had cartoons, the waist jacket had African print, and then the trouser was a plain dark blue, and then there was a brown somewhere, I don't remember, a very ugly brown. Ooh. Now, this man came, he was so excited to see me, I didn't even know how to hug him in people. At that time, dates were cinema, and that's how Rev J came. And I love him with all my heart. I just dragged him to the ladies' room, So we stood outside. I took off things. I took off the jacket, took off the waistcoat, took off the tie, and organized him so that at least 2 blues were okay. So we've all had that struggle, in one shape or another. And when I would be telling Rev J, we share our stories, don't judge us. He's still very cool. You can say, I'm married to the coolest reverend in this city. So don't hear my stories and then think, Bambi, he's fake. He is very cool. Anyway, so when we had just gotten married, and I'd be telling him, baby, I don't think that shirt works. Why don't you try this one? That was one of the things that he'd struggle with. I'm a grown man. I've been dressing myself. What's the issue?
For 32 years,
So when we got married, after a while, I was like, you know what, honey? Just try what I'm setting for you once. If you like it, let's go, do your work as you do, and then you'll give me feedback at the end of the day. So that day, he gave me a chance. I had free reign. I dressed him up, and he will tell you the story after he came, but the feedback was very good. So for a while there, I chose his clothes for him. Today, when he dresses up, I don't tell him what to wear. Very rarely will he say, hey babe, what do you think of this? And I'll say, maybe this over that. But I rarely have to have such an input anymore. And maybe this should encourage you that when you're starting your marriage, yes, there will be buhados, and there will be some stumbling blocks, and there will be some struggles, but it gets easier and it gets better. Both of you are in the process of learning, okay? You're learning each other, you're learning each other's strengths and weaknesses, but you're actually learning, okay, this person is good at that, this person is not good at that. So where in the beginning there will be a bit of friction, you'll find that if you're both working towards the same goal, to be one, and in the most Christ-glorifying way you can be, over time, it will get easier. It will not remain as difficult as it is in the beginning. Are we together? So be encouraged. Don't be overwhelmed by the friction and the struggle at the beginning. It's normal and it is okay. And it is also okay for somebody to feel like, you know what, I'm not yet ready for you to be in my space like that. But hopefully, if they are listening to Christ, they are consciously working towards letting you in so that they can blossom better with you. Are we together? Submission means you both submit to Christ. So at any time, if the two of you agree on something that is contrary to Christ's desires, then you are both in the wrong. If at any time a husband demands that a wife submit to him, and yet what he's demanding of her goes against what the Lord has led her to do, that is not submission. Or it is not good. It might be submission, but it is not good. It's not wise. The Bible doesn't tell us that you submit at whatever cost. No. Okay? And of course, husbands, people also throw this around quite a bit. The husband is the priest in the home, and therefore we should all, you should be a doormat. Just lie there, and he just steps over you. That's not it. Okay? What's the role of a priest? A priest is needs to show a good example, needs to give guidance and give caution, needs to organize consistent prayer and learning from the word, and either one of you can be a priest in the home. That is how homes where there are single mothers, or where there's a couple where the husband doesn't subscribe to the Christian faith and the wife does, that is how such homes grow. Because either one of us could do the priestly work, isn't it? Some of you even know you pray better than your husbands, you pray harder, or you read the Bible more. Isn't it true? Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the husband neglects his responsibility. So even when the wife is gifted and she can take on the responsibility, it is the Lord has given that as a primary responsibility of the husband. Are we together? Now, that brings me to the discussion on, maybe before we go into that discussion, let's tackle what submission is. So, if it's not about losing oneself, what it is, what is it? It's about giving honor. The long and the short of it. That is what I believe. I believe that every wife should give their husband honor. And even as we are giving our husbands honor, they also honor us. But it is default in men's settings to give honor to people that they respect, to people that they love. Unless something rocks the boat, that is a man's default setting. But for us, we don't know honor. It's not the norm. I don't believe in stereotypes, but it's not the norm for you, for example, to do military drills and all that. But for them, even, most little boys at some point or another could have dreamt about being in the army, that they are cut out for that, okay? But for us, we don't realize how important it is for men to feel honored, to feel respected. That is how they hear love. So, the long and the short of it, submission is not go, kneel, grovel, forget your brain, just lie like a doormat and do whatever he says. No. It is honor him. Honor him in the things that you do. Honor him in the things that you say. Honor him in the choices that you make. Okay? A faithful husband will willingly lay down his life for his wife, just as Christ did for the church. Okay? Covering her, protecting her, looking out for and after her. He puts aside his own will, affections, and needs for her. The wife willingly surrenders to him, to his headship, to his protection, to his care. So, are you honoring your husband? What does honor look like to you and to him? And you'd be very surprised. Every man in this room has a way he understands honor. It's not one size fits all, okay? Every man has a way that he understands and perceives honor. And every lady has a way that she feels cared for. Isn't it true?
Yes.
We all have a certain way. There's a certain something that he does and you feel like, but this Chiman Bambi, he loves me. Isn't it? Then there are other things. There are things he will do to you, and for her, she gets so hurt. While for me, if he did it, I would be like, So we had this discussion. Now, let me tell you another secret. This one is for editing, when you're doing that. So I was once having a discussion with ladies and gentlemen, and so many of the ladies were like, my God, if a man, the men were saying, when my wife does, some of the men were like, when my wife does me well, when we have a good night, I just, and leave Kamani on the table, okay? Now, for me, that thought even just excited me. I was like, ooh, so cool. There were women who were like, that's so insulting. Did I give you money, what? Now, there's no judgment. Please, you're entitled to all your opinions. But that's what I'm trying to tell you, that there are girls who you will do something like that for and they'll feel offended by it. And then there are others who you will do it for and they'll be like, come again tomorrow. You know what I mean? So, the two of you within your units need to have a conversation. Shh, don't lose focus, guys. Don't lose focus. Let's remain on the what? On the main course. So, the two of you as a unit need to have the conversation about what does honor look like to you and what does care look like to you, okay? Ladies, think about these things because they are not obvious, okay? He will do certain things and they will leave you feeling giddy, but you will not think about it and say, okay, consciously, actually, this is what makes Sharon tick. Think about them, maybe even write them down and tell your friend, by the way, I thought about it, this is what really makes me happy. And for the men, think about it. What does honor look like to you? So there are men who want to be knelt for, okay? I spoke to a husband once and he said, in the home where I grew up, all the ladies, when you would come back from school or from work, somebody knelt and took off your shoes and your socks. Now, for me, I can't even perceive that because I didn't grow up in a home like that. But there is somebody out there who needs that kind of girl who's willing to come and take off shoes. Mnange, after I had that, I tried go for Rev. And Rev,
it was very weird.
I didn't like over kneel, but I tried.
I was wondering, what are you looking for here?
So Rev has no expectations of me to do that. But there are people who culturally or, in one way or another have been exposed. All of us have our story. So it's important that you learn your person's story and learn what they need from you. How do they perceive honor and respect, And then give it. It doesn't take anything away from you. Give it. When you give honor to your man the way he needs it, you will be so wonderfully surprised at how he will blossom before you. Okay? He will bloom, he will be strong, he will be ready to conquer the world and lay it at your feet. And in the same way, when you care for your woman, you will be so amazed at the love that she will shower on you. And it's a cycle. You honor, she loves, you honor, she loves. And by doing that, and even in that honor, you are submitting one to another. So it doesn't mean that now because she's honoring, therefore you are calling all the shots. No. But in the process of both of you striving to grow together, to work together, to love one another, you'll be so amazed at what that does within your marriage. Okay? And the last thing that I would maybe tackle would be questions came up, I think, about roles. Like, so does that mean the man is the provider? Does that mean for me I stay home and look after babies and pop babies? I read somewhere where the lady described it as standing in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant, whipping a salad or something like that. Is that what we should all look like because we are now Christian wives? I don't believe that. I don't believe that being a Christian wife necessarily fits one shape, okay? There are ladies, we've all been, and Rev rightly said, we all have individual gifts, individual callings, individual strengths and weaknesses, but together we are achieving one purpose. So the two in the unit need to have a discussion on what is our purpose in our marriage? What are we working towards? And you don't have to have that answer at the beginning. You can grow into that answer. But as you're having these conversations, then design your life to accommodate the two of you, okay? So, for example, maybe between the two of you, you know that my husband is the better cook. Why not? Let him do the meals, okay? If between the two of you, you know that your wife is better at managing the finances, why not? Let her do it. Lest you wake up one day and you're poor, and you're struggling, and yet you could have been so much better. There are actually communities where the ladies run the households and run the finances. So why should a brilliant woman get into a marriage and then watch her husband squander all their resources and do nothing about it? And yet the two of you are building a strong unit together. The two of you need to have a discussion and say, okay, what does this look like for us? And whatever you agree on, let that work for you. If ever there needs to be a revisit, then do it. No one has said that if you decide in 2020, then in 2050 you should still be living by that. No. If at some point she conceives and she can't cook, then what will happen? If she's the one supposed to be cooking, if she conceives and the smell of the food makes her upset, are you going to starve? Either you're so rich, you'll hire a chef, or you will buy food outside, or you will do the cooking, isn't it? Yeah. If one day your husband, God forbid, lost his job or, was incapacitated in some way, does that mean that then the family would starve and die? Or does it mean that you would then leave him after he has committed his life to you? Would you then walk away and leave him to his own, let someone else wipe him. Let someone else. Is that what you're going to do? But you've heard of people who do that, isn't it? We are committing to be one in thick and thin. So design your lives to fit the two of you, as long as all the responsibilities that God has given you are covered. That is what is important. So what that looks like for Rev and I might look very different. It might look very different for the Ekimas, okay? And look very different for the Gonahasas and the Sevumas and the Gusavas. I got it right? Gusavas? Yes, Gusavas. So design your lives so that you guys are ticking, and whenever you need to amend it so that you continue moving forward together. I've been very fast, but I hope that you have picked something.